Restore healthy soil. Attract earthworms to your garden naturally. Bring life back to your garden. How to invite earthworms home. Hello there, friends. If you're anything like me, someone who finds peace among tomato vines and takes pride in every blossom that opens under the morning sun, then you know gardening isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. Over the years, we've learned to listen to the soil, cherish the quiet moments, and celebrate each new sprout like a small miracle. But lately, have you noticed something's off in your raised beds? That rich, earthy smell is fading, the worms have vanished, and the joy, it's starting to feel like hard work. Don't worry, you're not alone. I've been there too, and that feeling of helplessness when your garden goes quiet is familiar to many seasoned gardeners. Today on Meaningful Living, I'm sharing what might really be driving those worms away and how we can gently welcome them back. If you love your garden like I do, hit that subscribe button, and let's get growing together. The unsung heroes beneath your feet. Now, before we talk about what's going wrong, let's take a moment to appreciate what used to be right. Earthworms aren't just a good sign. They're the reason your soil was once so rich, so alive. These little creatures till the earth day and night. No complaints, no holidays. They break down leaves and compost into nutrients our plants can actually use. And their castings, scientists at Cornell University call them black gold for a reason. They're loaded with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in forms plants love. It's these natural fertilizers, known as humus, that create incredible fertility. By the way, if you want to learn more about the magic of humus, we have a dedicated video on it. For gardeners like us, who may not bend or dig as easily as we used to, worms are our invisible helpers. They create those tunnels that loosen the soil so roots can breathe. They're like tiny underground engineers working for your garden for free. They mix in organic matter without us lifting a finger. But when they disappear, everything changes. Suddenly the soil feels heavy, it dries out faster, and the plants we've lovingly raised year after year, they start to struggle too. It's like losing a quiet old friend you didn't always notice was there, but their absence is felt in every corner of your garden bed. I remember once my garden suddenly stopped breathing, and I couldn't figure out why for months. And I know many of us feel a bit helpless when something like this happens. But don't worry, I've been there too. And the good news is we can bring them back if we know what sent them away in the first place. The shocking ingredient that burns them away. Now here's where it gets tricky, my friend. A lot of us, myself included, have picked up tips and tricks over the years that seemed harmless. Maybe you read it in a gardening magazine, or a neighbor swore by it. 1 teaspoon of ground mustard in a gallon of water, pour it over the soil, and voila! No more gnats, no more grubs. Sounds natural, sounds organic, sounds safe. But it turns out this old-timey remedy has a hidden bite. When mustard powder hits the soil and mixes with water, it releases something called glucosinolates. These chemicals break down and create a spicy reaction, much like what you feel when you get a nose full of horseradish. Except this time, it's not hitting our noses. It's attacking the soft, sensitive skin of our precious earthworms. They don't just wriggle a little and move on. No, they shoot up to the surface in sheer panic. It burns them, it confuses them, and many of them leave for good. There's even research from the University of Illinois showing how these compounds can alter the microbial balance of the soil, wiping out not just pests, but the helpful communities that worms rely on. And I'll tell you, when a worm decides a place isn't safe, they won't come back easily. It's like putting up a big, "Do not enter" sign across your garden bed. And for us seniors, who treasure every inch of fertile ground we've built over the years, that's a loss we feel deeply. So before you reach for that mustard jar, take a breath. There's a better way, and we'll get to that soon. Natural doesn't always mean safe for worms. Now let's not point fingers at just mustard. There are plenty of natural things we toss into our beds with the best intentions that sadly do more harm than good. As gardeners, especially those of us in our golden years, we've learned to value simplicity. Many of us save kitchen scraps, hoping to feed the soil the way nature intended. And that's a beautiful habit. But not every leftover belongs in the garden. Things like meat, dairy, and oily foods break down in ways that don't serve the soil. Instead of nourishing life, they rot and release toxic gases like ammonia and methane that create a hostile underground world. These gases change the soil's pH level and create what's called anaerobic conditions, meaning a lack of oxygen, where worms simply can't breathe and survive. According to a report from the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, these gases can seriously damage soil structure and microbial balance. And for our dear worms, it's like trying to live in a smoke-filled room. Even some plant-based scraps like citrus peels, onions, garlic, and hot peppers can irritate or even repel worms. A little here and there might not be a disaster, but over time these strong compounds build up and make whole areas of your soil feel unwelcoming. So if your beds smell sour instead of sweet and earthy, take a step back. You might not see the problem right away, but your worms certainly can. And remember, dear friend, gardening is not about doing it perfectly. It's about learning gently, adjusting slowly, and always treating the soil like the living world it is. The chemical fertilizer trap. Now here's a topic that might hit close to home. I remember back in the day, grabbing those bright bags of October 10th 10 from the hardware store. They promised lush green growth, and they delivered, at least for a little while. But what I didn't realize back then, and maybe you didn't either, is that these synthetic fertilizers don't actually feed the soil. They feed the plant directly, skipping over the entire living network underground. And that shortcut comes with a cost. Over time, these chemical blends, especially those high in nitrogen, begin to acidify the soil. That means your worm tunnels dry out, the pH shifts out of balance, and the invisible community of microbes begins to fade. A 20-year soil health study from the University of Washington found that repeated use of chemical fertilizers leads to a steady decline in microbial biomass. And once that delicate web is broken, it's hard to get it back. For earthworms, it's like walking across a hot sidewalk barefoot. The salts in synthetic fertilizers can literally burn their skin and make your soil feel more like concrete than home. These salts literally draw all the moisture out of their delicate bodies, forcing them to seek refuge elsewhere. Sure, you'll see fast results at first. Big leaves, quick blooms. But just like us after too much diner food, it fades, and you're left feeling empty. The same goes for your garden. Fast food is never a long-term solution, especially when we're trying to build something lasting. And I know you, like me, aren't just gardening for today. You're gardening for the joy of watching something grow over time, season after season. Soil structure. Are you suffocating your soil? Now, even if you've been careful, avoiding mustard, skipping the scraps, staying away from chemical shortcuts, your soil still might not be breathing the way it should. And I know many of us love the feeling of a job well done. We water deeply, we mulch to protect. But sometimes, without even realizing it, we end up sealing the very life out of our garden beds. You see, worms, just like us, need air. Without oxygen, they can't breathe, can't move, can't survive. And when we pile on thick layers of grass clippings, or use dense bark mulch, or apply compost that's just too wet, we risk turning our raised beds into soggy, lifeless lumps. There was a study published by Michigan State University showing that overly compacted soil reduces worm activity by more than 60%. That's a big number, and it explains why even healthy-looking soil can be struggling beneath the surface. If you've ever leaned in and noticed your soil smells more like a swamp than a forest floor, it's time to fluff things up. The fix isn't complicated. Grab a garden fork, or even your hands. Gently aerate the soil and mix in something dry, like shredded leaves, straw, or even old pine needles. For example, you can lightly run a fork through the surface to create air pockets, or simply loosen the top layer of soil with your fingers, feeling its texture. Our generation knows the value of doing things right, not just fast. And sometimes the simplest changes, just giving the soil a little room to breathe, can make all the difference. We all make mistakes. Now let's make it right. Now listen, if you're watching this and thinking, oh no, I've done almost everything on that list. Take a deep breath. You're in good company. We've all been there. I've poured mustard water into my soil once, thinking I was doing the right thing. Back then, no one told me the worms would flee like their tails were on fire. But that's the beauty of gardening, especially for us seasoned growers. It's not about perfection. It's about paying attention, adjusting gently, and letting each season teach us something new. So if your garden feels quiet, if your beds have gone still, don't panic. You can invite the worms back. Start by pressing pause on anything harsh. No more spicy drenches, no synthetic quick fixes, and definitely no oily leftovers buried beneath the soil. Instead, give the soil what it craves, life. Add a layer of well-aged compost. That's like rolling out the welcome mat. Sprinkle in a little leaf mold or worm castings if you have them. Think of those as comfort food for the underground. Then try compost tea. Yes, tea, not for sipping, but for soaking the soil in beneficial microbes. To make it, you'll need a mesh bag with compost, an old pillowcase or specialized bagworks, a bucket of water, and an aquarium aerator. Just submerge the bag, turn on the aerator, and let it steep for 24 to 48 hours. The USDA has shown that compost tea boosts microbial activity, which sets the table for worms to return. Top everything off with a gentle mulch, shredded leaves, pine needles, or clean straw, nothing too wet or heavy. And finally, resist the urge to dig and poke too much. Worms, like us, enjoy a little peace and quiet. You give them comfort, and they'll come home. And when they do, your garden will start to breathe again. A simple weekly routine to invite worms back home. Now if you're someone who enjoys a little rhythm in your week, maybe watering the plants after breakfast or walking the garden before supper, this next part might feel like second nature. I found that worms, much like us in our golden years, thrive in routine. They don't ask for much, just a peaceful place to settle, a steady supply of good food, and soil that breathes. So here's a gentle weekly rhythm I like to follow. On the first day, I simply rake the surface of the soil with my fingers or a small hand tool. Just enough to loosen it and keep it fluffy. It's like airing out your garden bed's lungs. Midweek, I tuck in a handful of kitchen scraps that worms adore. Things like banana peels, mushy melon, or soft leafy greens. Not too much, just enough to keep them curious and coming back. Then near the end of the week, I give the soil a light mist with compost tea. Not a soaking, just a drink, to wake up the microbes and keep everything moist but breathable. And on Sunday, I rest. I sit on my garden bench, cup of tea in hand, and simply watch. I listen to the birds, I feel the breeze, and once in a while, if it's just rained, I see a few brave little wigglers poking up to say hello. Studies from Ohio State University show that regular organic feeding and moisture management can increase worm populations by over 40% in just a few weeks. So it doesn't take fancy products or big changes, just a little consistency and a whole lot of care. A gentle garden is a thriving garden. There's something beautiful about the way we, as older gardeners, approach the soil. We've learned not to rush. We've learned that the garden doesn't respond to force. It responds to rhythm, to kindness, to patience. You know, when I was younger, I used to think more fertilizer meant better harvests, more digging meant healthier roots. But these days I've come to understand that nature works best when we cooperate, not control. And the soil feels that difference. When we slow down and listen, really listen, to what the earth is telling us, we start to notice small miracles. Worms quietly returning, roots growing deeper and stronger, blossoms holding on just a little longer. Even the flavor of homegrown tomatoes becomes richer, more vibrant. There's research from the Rodale Institute that backs this up, showing that regenerative gardening methods, which prioritize soil health and minimal disturbance, result in more nutrient-dense produce and improve soil structure year after year. So yes, a gentle hand may take more time, but it leaves a deeper impact. And as someone who spent decades in the garden, I can tell you there's nothing more rewarding than watching your backyard become a little haven of life, simply because you chose to tread lightly. What worms absolutely love, little treats for big results. Now if you're anything like me, you find joy in the little things, the way dew sits on a cabbage leaf, the smell of damp soil after a spring rain. So it's no surprise that our quiet friends underground love the little things too. Worms don't need fancy products or expensive treatments. In fact, what they adore most are simple, natural gifts we often already have at home. Take crushed eggshells, for example. You can simply dry them out and crush them with a mortar and pestle or even just your hands. Not only do they gently raise soil pH, but they also provide calcium, which helps worms and plants alike. According to a study from the University of Florida, calcium-rich amendments can significantly improve microbial diversity, something worms thrive on. Then there's moistened cardboard, not the glossy kind, just plain brown, torn into strips and slightly damp. It makes a cozy bed and a slow, steady food source. It's like giving your worms a warm quilt and a homemade snack all in one. And if you happen to grow comfrey, or know someone who does, those chopped leaves are pure gold. Rich in nitrogen, potassium, and trace minerals, comfrey acts like green manure, nourishing the soil while feeding your worm colony with every breakdown. These little additions may seem small, but they create an environment worms can't resist. And when the worms are happy, the whole garden sings. Let your garden tell the story. If you follow these gentle steps and give your soil the love it's been asking for, one day, without warning, you'll feel it. The ground beneath your fingers will be soft, like chocolate cake crumbling in your palm. The smell, like a walk through a forest after rain. And when you water, you'll see it soaking in slowly, evenly, without pooling or running off. That's when you'll know something magical has happened. Your plants will start to look different too. Not just greener but stronger, more upright, more alive. It's not your imagination. It's the quiet work of a thriving underground world, doing what it was meant to do. Researchers from the University of California, Davis have confirmed that soil rich in microbial and worm activity holds more nutrients, retains moisture longer, and supports plant growth more efficiently than chemically treated soil. So if one morning you step outside and your garden feels different, know this. It's not luck, it's not coincidence. It's the reward of care, patience, and the wisdom we've gathered over a lifetime in the garden. The soil is speaking, and it's saying thank you. So the next time you step into your garden, take a moment to kneel down just for a second and touch the soil. Really feel it. That warmth, that texture, that quiet life beneath the surface. It's not just dirt. It's memory, it's care, it's everything we've nurtured with our hands and our hearts. And even if the worms disappeared for a while, even if mistakes were made, we've still got time. Time to listen, time to mend, time to grow again. Not just better gardens, but deeper understanding. Here on Meaningful Living, we don't chase perfection. We cherish progress. We honor the wisdom that comes with age, and we celebrate every gardener who still finds wonder in the smallest seed. So if this video brought you a little clarity, or even just a little peace, don't forget to subscribe. And now, I'm curious to hear from you. What natural remedies have you used in your garden without knowing their potential harm? Or perhaps, what are your favorite treats for earthworms that help them thrive? Share your stories and tips in the comments below. Until next time, keep planting, keep learning, and keep believing in the quiet magic beneath your feet.